Our sponsor today is Ridge Wallet, a great alternative to outdated and horribly bulky wallets. More on them in just a little bit. Today, step back in time and uncover the hidden beauty and history of forgotten train stations, from the bustling Anhalter Bahnhof station in Berlin to the elegant Aldwych station in London. Witness the rise and fall of these truly grand architectural wonders, and discover the untold story of City Hall Station in New York, which was once considered the most beautiful abandoned station in the world. Let's jump in. Modern visitors to Berlin may pass through the S-Bahn station named Anhalter Bahnhof, about a kilometer southeast of Potsdamer Platz, without ever realizing that this unassuming low-roofed rail station is all that remains of an incredible 19th century landmark. Today, only a fragment of the portico now remains of one of Berlin's most impressive and imposing buildings, the original Anhalter Bahnhof. Designed by C. Gustav Holzmann and opened to the public in 1841, the first Anhalter Bahnhof station served as the northern terminus of the vital Berlin-Anhalt Railway, which carried passengers from Berlin to all points south. Unique in its time, the Anhalter Bahnhof was the first Grand Line station to ever offer separate lines and platforms for freight and passenger traffic. Until then, stations would just service both types of traffic from the same platforms. Though it's difficult to imagine today, railway stations before Anhalter were dangerous, noisy places, constantly bustling with cargo trains being unloaded, fueled, hooked and unhooked. Passengers had to contend with heavy machinery and loaders who frequently blocked platforms, and accidents were shockingly common. Anhalter, then, with its high ceilings and clean, wide-open platforms, must have been a marvel for Berliners. It was expanded and updated several times, most notably from 1874 to 1880, when its tracks were raised and a massive station hall 34 meters high was constructed, mostly of terracotta brick, making it the largest such hall in Europe. It had a capacity of at least 60,000 passengers per day. During the 1936 Olympics in Berlin, it was claimed that Anhalter Bahnhof saw arrivals and departures every 2 minutes. It was during the 1880 expansion that the legendary portico, the only part of the old station that survives today, was constructed. The expanded station even had a secret VIP reception and waiting area for the highest rulers of Germany, including Kaiser Wilhelm I and Chancellor Otto von Bismarck. So esteemed was the station among German elites that it hosted many international receptions, most famously in 1913 when Russian Tsar Nicholas II was welcomed by Kaiser Wilhelm II for the wedding of his daughter Victoria Luise. The archway leading to the reception area has been preserved in the German Technical Museum, DTM, in Berlin. In 1928, at the height of the Roaring Twenties, newly wealthy Europeans had a growing taste for holiday travel, and so the station was connected by tunnel to the Excelsior Hotel, which the Excelsior claimed was the longest hotel tunnel in the world. First-class passengers of the era were treated to something like the modern airport experience as they walked past a series of shops lining the tunnel on the way to luxurious new trains for weekends in the country. Along with much of Berlin, Anhalter Bahnhof fared poorly under relentless Allied air raids during the Second World War. In February 1945, the station was badly damaged by firebombing, and the once legendary roof of the main hall was completely destroyed, though the walls did survive. Rather than being rebuilt following the war, the station fell into disuse as tensions between the Soviet occupying forces and the West caused the partitioning of Berlin and made intercity transport much more difficult. The station, exposed to the elements for years, was finally slated for demolition in 1959. Despite vehement campaigns to preserve the historic building, only the main portico was left intact. Plans to build a successor station in place of the old one never materialized. Today, only an ordinary underground S-Bahn station remains near the site of this historic behemoth, a quiet reminder of a more hopeful era. So look, if you're tired of walking around with a giant protrusion from the pocket where you keep your wallet, today's sponsor is absolutely perfect for you. Look, I know this story. I had the same wallet since I was like 18. It was this leather wallet. It used to be nice, and then it became absolutely massive and stuffed with a bunch of cards and receipts that I don't use. So I got rid of them all, and I got myself a Ridge wallet, and I have the 3 cards and my driving license in here. These are all the things I really need in the world, and that's it. There's a little cash thing, but there's no cash in here because who uses cash anymore? But it's nice to have. I suppose I could keep a little emergency cash in there or something. It's basically taken ugly old wallets and turned them into something cool and sleek and compact. Also, they've done the same thing basically for the key case, which, you know, those giant jangle of keys that you had, my work keys were like that, and now my work keys are just these 3 keys on this thing. It's perfect. And not only is the design on this wallet amazing, but it's also got RFID protection, which keeps you safe from digital pickpockets. It also comes in 30 different colors and styles to choose from. You can easily find one that's perfect for you. So upgrade your wallet today to the Ridge wallet and replace your old keychain with the key case. And best of all, if you go to ridge.com/sideprojects and enter my promo code sideprojects, you're going to be entitled to a special 10% discount. So be safe and stylish with a Ridge wallet. And now back to today's video. The next item on our list is really everything the grand 19th century stations of Europe are not. It's tiny, it's modest, it's unimposing, and yet, as we'll discover, you've already seen it more than once. Aldwych Station, formerly known as Strand Station, is one of a small number of London Underground stops that have been preserved as listed buildings, kept for their historic and architectural value. The British Art Nouveau style station has an interior tiled in cream and dark green, 3 street-level exits of classic red brick facades with the traditional black-on-white lettering of the London Underground. The station was built in 1905 on the Piccadilly line in anticipation of a route from Piccadilly Circus to the City of London, which was never built. Because of this miscalculation on the part of London Transport, Strand Station, as it was then called, only ever accommodated short-hop shuttle trains to Holborn Station, usually at peak hours, Monday to Friday. The station was closed during World War II and served as a storage place for the collections of the National Gallery during the Blitz, keeping priceless British art safe from German bombs. The station had been targeted for closure by London Transport repeatedly, beginning in 1933. However, it was saved over and over by plans to extend and renovate nearby lines. Each time London Transport slated it for closure, another proposed project would keep it open. Still, none of these projects ultimately employed Aldwych Station, which continued to provide access to an almost completely redundant route to Holborn. As is once happened in London, the station remained in administrative limbo for over 6 decades, finally closing in 1994 when it was determined that the original lifts would be too expensive to renovate. By then, the historical value of the station had ensured that it would never be destroyed. One reason for this was that because of Aldwich's relative lack of importance and traffic, it had become a popular filming location, standing in for many stations on the London Underground, as well as other underground systems from around the world. The station appears in dozens of popular films, including Patriot Games, Atonement, The Good Shepherd, Fast and Furious 6, The Bank Job, and many others. When you imagine the London Underground as portrayed in period films, you may very well be imagining this station, one which, ironically, was never much use to anyone in real life. Perhaps the most haunting location on our list is an abandoned station on the New York subway on the IRT Lexington Avenue line called City Hall Station. Approved by planners in 1900 and first opened in 1904, City Hall Station was one of the original 28 stations of the New York City subway, then called Interborough Rapid Transport, taking riders south to Atlantic Avenue, Brooklyn, and as far north as 242nd Street in the Bronx. This was the showpiece of the whole system, a beautifully curved side platform with a mezzanine designed by Rafael Gustavino, a Spanish architect who drew inspiration from the Catalan vault, a type of brickwork arch of Roman origin that is common in Catalonia. The station's mezzanine, decorated in interlocking terracotta tiles, now called Gustavino tile, along with glass tiles, brass chandeliers, and skylights, was built in a Romanesque revival style. Romanesque revival architecture draws inspiration from the 11th and 12th century pre-Gothic architecture, a subdued, subtle style that features simple, semicircular arches and clean lines inspired by both Roman and Byzantine designs. However, this station also served as an example of some other controversial developments in public transit. In 1907, the IRT began to display advertisements in the station, which the public saw as an invasion and an affront to its populist design principles. The ads were so controversial that the city sued the IRT system to remove them. The case reached the New York Supreme Court, which set a precedent for the future by allowing the ads to remain in place. Today, the New York City subway is notorious for its ubiquitous advertiser presence, a decision now widely copied around the world. By the 1960s, the area was in decline. Most traffic used the nearby Brooklyn Bridge station, and in its final year of service in 1965, City Hall Station served just 800 riders a day on average. It was briefly considered as the new home of the New York Transit Museum, but was beaten out by Court Street Station in Brooklyn. In 1979, despite disuse, the station was designated for protection by the New York City Landmark Preservation Commission, along with 11 other stations of the original IRT. Today, trains still use the station's track as part of a service loop, but despite many proposals for its use, the station remains mostly empty. In the 1980s, Mayor Ed Koch proposed allowing it to be revived as a restaurant, but this was rejected over security concerns. In 1995, the NYTM again took an interest in opening the station to the public, and renovations did begin, but were later dropped due to rising concerns of terrorist attacks following the first bombing of the World Trade Center, which led city officials to cancel the project. Today, the Grand Station, with its ornate glass ceiling tiles and skylights, remains inaccessible to the public, a victim of what many believe to be a lack of imagination and courage on the part of city officials to make New York City's history come back to life. Great railway stations often serve as a lesson in the ravages of economic progress and decay, and nowhere is that more true than in Detroit, where the magnificent Michigan Central Station lies empty, a hollow reminder of much better times. The station was built in 1913, as Detroit was swiftly becoming one of the fastest growing cities in the world thanks to its large workforce, cheap land, and the abundance of steel, which attracted major auto manufacturers and other heavy industries in the early 20th century. Once the undisputed capital of the Rust Belt, Detroit rivaled Los Angeles in its sprawl and Chicago in its industrial might. It was home to nearly 2 million workers in 1950. Today, just 632,000 people remain. Vast tracts of demolished housing sit eerily silent. On January 5th, 1914, not coincidentally, the day after the official opening of the Central Station, Henry Ford made history by offering workers in his Detroit factory $5 a day as a starting wage for 8-hour workdays. This huge increase, as much as 500% for some workers, was meant to share the enormous profits of the growing auto industry with working people, and so doing to spread the wealth and prosperity of America's industrial might with its working class and build a new economy focused on consumerism and growth. Millions of workers surged into the Rust Belt, and a great many of these passed through Detroit Central Station on the road to a better life. It's not an overstatement to say that the station rivaled Ellis Island as a beacon of hope for the world's poor. That's all gone today, where once thousands of European immigrants, southern black sharecroppers, and other fortune seekers entered the city daily in search of better jobs and middle-class homes. Today, ruin porn enthusiasts photograph the wreckage of globalism. While the structure is regarded by many as an ugly reminder of the city's flirtation with disproportional Beaux Arts-style architecture, which mimics New York's Grand Central Terminal and Paris's Grand Palais, others see Michigan Central Station as a beacon of possible hope for the future. Though it was abandoned in 1988 when Amtrak service ceased, the building's 13 stories of office space and 2 large mezzanines with roofs 70 meters, 230 feet high, have been the focus of efforts to revitalize Detroit, transforming the city from a decaying factory town into a hub for innovative tech companies. To this end, Ford Motor Company purchased the building in May 2018 with the intention of restoring it as the centerpiece of a new model of American urbanism, centered on knowledge work and technology, and reimagining once public spaces as hubs for creativity and renewal. Will these plans succeed? Well, only time can tell. Fordland, Ford Motor Company's $1 billion capital investment scheme, is seeking at least $250 million in tax incentives and easements to make this site and others in Detroit economically viable and ready for renewal. If it works, Michigan Central Station may become the new symbol of the Silicon Heartland, and perhaps new generations of immigrant workers will find themselves gazing up at the station's ceilings once more, hopeful for a better tomorrow.